Hey everyone, it's Jordan here from Switch Watch, your number one place for Nintendo Switch reviews. Now today I have a game from Eclipse Games called Tachyon Project. It's a twin stick shooter that I've actually played before on the Nintendo Wii U, but now here it is on the Nintendo Switch. Is this worth your hard-earned cash? Well, let's find out. In the vein of the classic arcade game Robotron 2084 and the more recent Geometry Wars, Tachyon Project is a twin-stick shooter that's been out on practically every system going since its initial release. Indeed, it seems that if you want a twin-stick shooter these days, the Nintendo Switch is the place to go, as we must have covered at least a dozen of them since the console's launch. So how is this one supposed to stand out from the crowd? Well, by being pretty good. You may be surprised to hear that there is a story mode in Tachyon Project, and it's definitely an interesting concept. You are a computer program named Ada, who's been designed to hack into secure systems over the internet. After her two creators are taken away by a mysterious organization, Ada takes to the net, searching for clues as to what happened to them. There are intermittent cutscenes that tell the story through mostly static drawings. Sadly, the little animation involved makes it somewhat difficult to keep interested in it, especially when it keeps on the same drawing for an uncomfortable amount of time. But aside from that, it's a nice surprise in a genre that you wouldn't really expect it. While I never really felt totally involved with the characters, I was interested in the overall outcome. Does Ada save her creators? Is there a twist? In the audio department, the music is pretty decent, even if it's somewhat predictable in the fact that it matches the visual themes in exactly the way you'd think. It's all original techno music that has a lot of variety in it and doesn't get repetitive, which is always a bonus. It helps add to the tension of the gameplay very well, and of course pump you up for the tight battles against the hordes of enemies that will come your way. Sound effects can also play a large part in the experience, especially in twin-stick shooters, where you'll be hearing the same sounds over and over again due to the nature of the gameplay. They're actually pretty solid. They're not annoying in any way, which is always the danger, but then again, they are hardly the most satisfying sound effects that I've heard. There's no oomph or thump to the attacks, which is really what I want to hear. It's not a massive issue though, as it's not particularly noticeable. Visually, it's quite adequate, nothing special. Your ship and enemies are kept fairly simple and distinctive. The futuristic neon colours against the dark backgrounds really stands out, but there's nothing we haven't seen before. Even though it's on a 2D plane, everything is made of 3D models, and they are a little on the simple side if I'm being honest. The game could have been more ambitious in this area, but when the gameplay is fast and furious, you barely notice it. One thing that did bother me about the visuals is that they're not as sharp as they should be. There's an overall murkiness to everything. The colours do stand out, but they don't pop. Whether it's to do with the frame rate or not, I'm not sure. I think when in handheld mode it looks far better, much more suited to the smaller screen where everything looks sharper and brighter. Playing handheld is probably the way to go rather than docked, which is always an odd suggestion. The only problem I have with that is that the text is a little on the small side on the Switcher screen. For me, in a twin-stick shooter, it's the gameplay that's absolutely key. You can have all the story, visuals and audio that you want, but if the gameplay isn't there, the game is moot. Thankfully, the gameplay is pretty awesome. As you'd expect, the left stick controls your movement direction while the right stick decides your shooting direction. In this regard, it seems pretty par for the course, but Tachyon Project has its own little tricks up its sleeve that sets it apart from the crowd. One of the most interesting aspects of the game is that your health is based on time. You begin each level with a timer that counts down. Taking a hit from an enemy takes a chunk of seconds away, and if the timer reaches 0, then you fail. Therefore, getting constantly hit is bad and potentially lethal. On the other hand, to contest against your ever decreasing time, destroying an enemy will grant you an extra few milliseconds to the time you have left. That doesn't sound like much, but when you're taking out hordes of enemies, it soon adds up to a maximum of 99 seconds. Personally, I really enjoyed the ever increasing and decreasing of your health. It's a system that made the tenseness of each level a roller coaster ride. One minute you're riding high, the next you're scraping by. The story mode isn't the longest, as there are only 10 levels, each consisting of 6 waves. Each wave has a different mission to accomplish, which I really like. These can vary between destroying a certain amount of enemies, destroying one particular kind of enemy, or surviving for a short amount of time. They're not exactly inventive goals, but they definitely make the game feel fresher than it otherwise would have if it was just a kill all enemies affair. It'll probably take you less than a couple of hours to complete the main story, so it doesn't outstay its welcome at all. I think many of you will think that is too short, but I think it's fair enough as the game does have other things going for it. As you progress through the story mode, you have a lot of options to curate your craft. There are 5 slots you can customize. The first one is your primary weapon. You begin with just a standard weapon, but you can change it to other things like a machine gun, a shotgun, missiles, and so on. 2 more slots are taken up by your secondary weapons, which are mapped to the ZL and ZR buttons respectively. You start off with an explosion, which wipes out most enemies in your vicinity. Your standard panic bomb you find in most shooters. It's not long until you can switch these to proximity mines, a freeze bomb, a sentry turret, amongst other things. The final 2 slots are taken up by perks, the first of which is extra health, although these can be changed to make your ship faster, have more powerful shots, the ability to push back enemies, and others. While it's really cool that there are so many options for you to combine, I actually found very few of them to be useful. I tried almost everything I unlocked, and yet I still had to venture back to machine gun, explosion, health, and stronger bullets. Not very adventurous, but probably the best combination I could find, and it helped me overcome what can be potentially a tough game. There are a mind-blowing amount of enemies in this game. Almost every wave you're introduced to something new. Every enemy is distinctly designed so that you can quickly learn each of their different traits and how to potentially deal with them. The large amount that you'll come across means the stages don't really get boring at any point because you'll always be facing something new. There are even a few boss battles which, while not particularly exciting, they keep the gameplay fresh and provide a solid challenge. If I'm going to be honest, there are only 2 gameplay flaws in Tachyon Project that actually bother me. The first flaw is that the environments are quite boring. The arenas in which you face the enemies are always just the same rectangular space. Sure, the background and colours may change, but it's a shame they didn't try something new for each level. The arenas could have been different shapes, had some obstacles in the middle, anything just to change it up a little and stop it feeling boring. There was a lot of potential here. I was going to include this in the visual part of the review, but because it affects the gameplay so much, I just had to put it here. The second flaw is also the biggest one in my opinion. Each wave of each level, it seems that enemies have a set spawn point that never wavers to circumstance. The problem comes when, very often, your ship is located on a spawning place, and you unfortunately take unwarranted damage from a group of enemies joining the battle. Taking damage from spawning enemies happens all of the time, and it's really quite annoying as there's not too much you can do about it unless you fail the level and then remember for next time you try. It only occasionally resulted in me failing a stage, so it's not game breaking by any means, but it's something that just shouldn't happen. A solution should have been to have enemies unable to spawn within a certain radius of your ship. So Tachyon Project has been out a while, with ports all over the place, and it's a shame to see this issue still being present even on the latest release. It was a problem I had with the Wii U version, it's a problem I have with the Nintendo Switch version. It's a missed opportunity to set things right. Outside of the main story, there's a new game plus after you complete the story, and there are also some challenge modes. These challenge modes all come from simple endless challenges, but they each have a special twist. In one of them, you're not allowed to use bombs. In another, there are mines with ever-decreasing blast radii in the corner. It's these challenge modes where Score Attack fans will feel right at home, and the surprising amount of different ones available is great. If you've got friends around, you can actually play this game with up to 4 players. I only had the chance to play with a single other person for review, but what we did play in 2-player co-op, we really enjoyed. It was both easier with more people and also more chaotic as you can't guess which enemies will go for who. Definitely worth a go in my opinion. What is rather surprising is that the fact that you could play Tachyon Project with just a single Joy-Con. Yes, a twin stick shooter with just one stick. This time the face buttons do the shooting and aiming, but it is restricted to just 8 directions, limiting your performance somewhat. Not ideal to play through the whole game like this, but it's perfect for the Switch, especially if you want to do local multiplayer while out and about. At an unambitious £8.99, I would say that Tachyon Project is well worth the value. In this current eShop climate, £8.99 is not a lot, and I think the publishers, Eclipse Games, have chosen a very enticing price point. Sure, the story mode isn't the longest, but don't forget the challenge modes, New Game Plus, as well as potential multiplayer options. There's a deceptive amount of things you can do in Tachyon Project. The gameplay is definitely up there too, and well worth the price, I think. Overall, Tachyon Project is a surprisingly good twin-stick shooter. I think it's got plenty to offer fans of the genre with its health time gimmick, a somewhat interesting story, lots of customization, mission types and enemy variety. It's got a lot going for it, including the cheap price. Yes, the battle arenas may be a little boring and taking damage from enemies as they spawn is just an obvious flaw, but these problems aren't enough to stop me from recommending it. I would give Tachyon Project a very decent 8 out of 10. Okay guys, if you've enjoyed this review and you're a regular Switch watcher, then you know what to do. Hit that like button and leave us a comment below. What do you guys think of Tachyon Project? Have you played it on other consoles, or will this be your first time? If you're new here, then consider clicking that subscribe button, as we are determined to bring you as many comprehensive Nintendo Switch reviews far into the future. I'm Jordan from Switch Watch, and I'll see you guys next time.